All right, today we're going to tackle a big one. We're diving into one of the most, let's say, controversial and definitely influential political books of the 20th century, Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Now, this isn't just a book you read, it's more like a tactical manual, a playbook for social change that people have been both praising and, well, absolutely condemning for over 50 years now. So yeah, let's get right into it. And to get a feel for just how confrontational this book is, you honestly don't have to look any further than the dedication. I mean, Alinsky kicks things off with this pretty provocative nod to Lucifer, who he calls the very first radical. It's a total shock tactic, right? It's designed to signal from the absolute first page, hey, we are not playing by polite society's rules here. So, you might be asking, what is this book, really? Well, Alinsky is super clear about it. This is not some deep, philosophical text. Nope, it's a pragmatic guide. He calls it a primer, and it's written for a very specific audience with a very, very specific goal in mind. And he doesn't beat around the bush. He lays it out like this. You know Machiavelli's The Prince? That was written for the haves on how to keep their power. Well, Alinsky says Rules for Radicals is for the have-nots, and it's all about how to take that power away. It's basically a manual for building mass organizations to grab power and, give it back to the people. Okay, now here's where things get really interesting. It all starts with Alinsky's foundational principle. Before you can even begin to think about changing the world, he says you have to do one absolutely crucial thing. You have to accept the world as it is, not as you wish it would be. He really lays out this stark contrast. On one hand, you've got the world as we'd like it to be, right? A place filled with angels, clear morality, good versus evil. But then, there's the world as it is. And Alinsky says a true realist has to see it for what it is. A world of angles, not angels, where people are driven by power and, frankly, self-interest. He basically says, look, we talk about moral principles, but we act on power principles. It's a pretty cynical way of looking at things, for sure, but man, it helps explain a lot of modern political behavior, doesn't it? And this quote he uses, it just perfectly illustrates his point. He pulls in Henry James to really hammer home this idea that the world is a constant battle, a constant arena of conflict. It's not some peaceful garden where everyone is rational. You have to start from that gritty, messy reality if you want to have any hope of making real change. So, given this world of constant conflict, how does Alinsky break down society? Well, he argues that you can basically divide all of humanity into three distinct groups, and it's all based on one thing, their relationship to power and possessions. He calls it the Trinity of society, which is pretty memorable. So you've got the haves at the very top. They want to keep things exactly as they are. Then, at the bottom, you have the have-nots. They've really got nowhere to go but up. And then, caught right in the middle, you have the have-a-little-want-mores. That's the middle class. And what's fascinating is that Alinsky points out that this conflicted, squeezed middle class, well, historically, that's where most revolutionary leaders come from. All right, let's get into what is probably the most fiercely debated part of this whole book, Alinsky's take on ethics, specifically the whole relationship between means and ends in political action. You know the question. It's the classic one that always comes up when people talk about his tactics. Does the end justify the means? I mean, this question has been at the heart of ethical debates for centuries. But here's the Alinsky twist. He basically says, that's the wrong question. It's meaningless. He thinks it's just an abstract trap for people who are sitting on the sidelines, watching the action, not for the people who are actually in the fight. And this is the crucial point. This reframing, he completely shifts the debate. It's not about some universal moral absolute anymore. It's a pragmatic, situational thing. For the person of action, the only question that matters is this. Is this particular end worth this particular means? And he lays out some pretty stark rules about this. First, he says your concern for ethics is directly related to how far you are from the actual conflict. Makes sense, right? Second, in a war, the end justifies pretty much any means. Third, it's success or failure that decides whether something is seen as moral or immoral. One person's traitor is another's founding father if they win. And finally, and this is a big one, you do what you can with what you have, and then you dress it all up in moral language. I mean, that's become a masterclass in modern political messaging right there. This focus on language is so key to his whole philosophy. Alinsky was adamant about using direct, what he called unsterilized words for political ideas. Why? Because he believed that softening the language, using euphemisms, just hides the reality of how the world actually works. Let's take the word power, for example. We're kind of conditioned to think of it as a dirty word, right? But for Alinsky, power isn't good or evil. It's just the dynamo of life. It's organized energy. He says a world without power would literally be a dead planet. The only real question is who has it and how are they using it? And understanding that is the first step for any group that wants to make a real impact today.
And it's the same thing with the term self-interest. He argues it's not the same as selfishness. It's the prime moving force in human behavior. In fact, he goes so far as to call the myth of pure altruism an American fairy tale. You think about it, any successful modern movement, whether it's a local campaign or some huge online thing, it knows how to tap into that fundamental human drive to get people to actually do something.
So, all of this, it leads us to Alinsky's core philosophy on what social change even is. And let me tell you, if you're looking for a happy ending or some kind of final victory, you've definitely come to the wrong book. He uses this really powerful metaphor. He says the struggle is like climbing a mountain that has no top. Every single time you think you've made it to the summit, the clouds part, and you realize you're just on a bluff, a plateau. The real peak is still way up there. And for Alinsky, this is really the ultimate point. There's no final destination. There's no utopia waiting for us at the end of the road. The real meaning, the purpose, even the happiness, it's all found in the struggle itself. It's all about that perpetual climb, not about actually reaching the top. And that really leaves us with the central challenge of Alinsky's work, doesn't it? It's the kind of question that really sticks with you long after you've put the book down. If the fight is a perpetual climb, and every solution just creates a new problem, what does winning even mean?